On this episode of ResiWeek, Randy Klein retires from Crestron, CEDIA Expo's Innovation Hub, and expecting more from your service providers. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek, episode 284, A Trusted Advisor.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Middle Atlantic. What great systems are built on.
Welcome to this episode of ResiWeek. This is your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matt D. Scott for AVNation.tv. This week, I am pleased to be joined by my good friend, Mr. Jeremy Glowacki. He is the executive editor of Residential Tech Today. How you doing, Jeremy?
I'm doing well, Matt. It's rare that it's a one-on-one podcast. It's back. It's like when I had you on my podcast and we talked one-on-one, and we did it. So we're going to do it here.
We're going to do it here. We were supposed to have our good friend Alex Capistrano from Josh AI. Unfortunately, he is under the weather today, so he couldn't join us. So you're stuck with Jeremy and I. So it's going to be a great show. We're going to hold down the fort. Jeremy, let's kick this off with, I got to say, an announcement that kind of came out of nowhere to me. This comes to us from CE Pro. Crestron's CEO, Randy Klein, has announced his retirement. He is going to retire later this fall, and the current COO and chairman, Dan Feldstein, is going to take over the reins. If you recognize the Daniel Feldstein name, that's because he is the son of Crestron founder George Feldstein, who, as we said, is going to take over the president and CEO position. Jeremy, this is, as I said, this is one of those things where Randy's one of those characters that for whatever reason, I just never thought he'd retire. He's one of those incredibly strong leaders in the industry that you just don't think about that. You don't think about him. And again, I have no idea what he's going to do in retirement, but that stereotypical retirement of, let's go down to Fort Lauderdale and play shuffleboard doesn't sound like Randy. Granted, it's one of those things. I know his wife had kind of slowed down or retired, I think, a year or two ago. So it does make sense, but I'm sure that Crestron is going to miss the force that has been Randy Klein for the last 8 years. What is the legacy of Randy at Crestron? What is that going to look like when he steps down later in the fall?
Yeah, I was in the same thought. I couldn't really imagine him ever willingly leaving. That one of these guys who just he nods off at his desk and that's it, kind of thing. But he was a force for sure, like you said, and will be until the day he actually steps out of that office. But over the years, I've been covering this industry for 20 plus years, and I've had moments early on when George Feldstein, the founder, was still alive, and you would meet with him, and he was the quintessential inventor type personality, really charming. He seemed like a real New Jersey guy, just through and through. You met with him. He showed you like things that were being developed that were never going to turn into real products, that were just his like skunkworks kind of inventor lab. And it was just really fun to be a reporter, being given this insight into this kind of creative mind. And then there was Randy, and Randy is a management guy. And I think what happened was he kind of became the sort of the yin and yang of that company with George, where he kind of had to do some of the heavy lifting of the management team, putting the right people in place. And he quite a bit like created this structure that I think can survive without him. I mean, I think that's the key to a good CEO or a president is putting the people in place that this thing, of course, he has an important role to play as the chief executive, but he should be able to create a company to where he steps away and it runs as well as it did while he was there. I know that Dan and his sister both were involved in the company for the past 20 years or so as well.
Yeah.
So there's been family legacy there for the entire time that Randy's been in charge. It's not like somebody's coming in out of nowhere just because their name is Feldstein to be in charge. So I am confident that there will not be any missed momentum with this company.
Yeah.
It's very well established, and there are a lot of great engineers working for the company and sales professionals too. So
what do you see with the change from, going from a company that, as you mentioned, was run by George with that inventor mindset, but a founding family, and then Randy comes in and changes that, and George was obviously still there for a little bit doing stuff while Randy was running things. Dan and his sister have been involved for quite a few years, and now I don't want to say the family's taking back over, but does that do anything, or is there any real changes you think to the culture when it goes through that kind of transition of family, not family, back to family?
It's hard to really point to an exact corollary there, but the thing that came to mind was when you look at the way Lutron has gone from a founder to a non-founder at the helm, and you would think that, oh man, here's an entrepreneur, started this company from nowhere, I'm talking about Lutron, and has a product in the Smithsonian, really that legacy. But then you build enough people around you, and I don't know if, there's still some family involvement at Lutron as well. That's not something that's very forward and present to the outside world. But I don't foresee that someone like Dan Feldstein would probably try to change the process that's already in place there. And I would imagine he's part of that, what Randy Klein has created, and probably doesn't want to mess with success, because they are a successful company, privately owned, and you do things the way you want to do them when you're privately held. But if you're a successful company, I don't imagine they're going to try to mess with too much of that. The individuals who are in charge in the various divisions are going to probably keep doing what they're doing. So I don't foresee this much affecting things in the way the outside world looks at the company, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't either. It's going to be fun to watch because again, it's Crestron. It'll be a party. All right, let's move on to our next story of the day. This comes to us from Residential Systems, new for CEDIA Expo 2021, the Innovation Hub. This is billed as the place where cool brands share case studies highlighting the hottest new residential technology spaces. So this is going to have a couple of hot new spaces, which is a direct quote, including outdoor living, resi-commercial, multifamily housing, and micro condo developments, work from home, home theater, lighting, security, and smart water, just to name a few. As a side note, before we totally dive deep into this, if you are going to CEDIA Expo and you haven't registered yet, you can use AVNation as a free code to get you access to the exhibit floor. I keep forgetting to mention that, so I'm going to get that out of the way before I forget again. Jeremy, this is, I don't want to say this is a new thing. They've had Innovation Alley before. They've had all of these little kind of sections where hot new trends or hot new devices or hot new companies are out and kind of combined all on the show floor to help integrators and attendees, kind of see all those new evolving technologies all in one spot, right? So you don't overlook them as you're going from large booth to large booth to large booth, and you miss that little 10 by 10. What do you think about the way in which it looks like, and again, we haven't been there, we haven't seen how they're going to do this, so we're kind of taking some educated guesses here. What do you think about the way in which they're kind of using case studies to showcase some of these new divisions or not divisions, but, areas for people that haven't really, jumped on the outdoor living side of things. Or, to name a few.
yeah, any of these topics really, I think case studies are, they're kind of like the magazine editor's best friend, because they're just such great ways to showcase new technologies. Being a case study, you're getting the real experience of what the application of the technology is. So if you apply that to a trade show floor, I think it really opens things up and loosens things up and makes things more tangible. For those who maybe are looking to explore a category that they haven't done anything with, this is the kind of story that you hear when you're sitting at a table at a conference that you go to, if you're at a buying group meeting or management conference of some sort, and you sit there and you're having breakfast with your colleagues and you start, hey, I just did this project, and you start hearing this story, and they go back and forth and talk war stories, and experiences out in the field. And I think that to present this in a more formalized way is a really great way to introduce something like smart water, which I thought, well, that's funny. That's my favorite kind of water to get when I'm out at the deli. But it's what the category is, and I don't refer to it like this, but it's like automatic shut-off valves and things like that to avoid flooding and water damage. So that's a category that you hear a lot about. And this topic that I don't like buzzwords, but the ResiMercial thing has really gotten big in CE Pro. Yeah, so I avoid using that terminology, but it has its purpose there in terms of that crossover from residential to commercial, back to from commercial to residential, a lot of the home office stuff. And I know that that's going to be a lot of where we're seeing this is how do you make that Zoomification kind of thing happen in a professional way in a home. So it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah. Do you expect to see, the traditional brands really highlighted in this, or do you expect to see this to be a little bit more of the startup? Because, like if we use Smart Water as an example, there are a handful of brands, like large brands, that are playing in that space. The majority of the smart water companies are kind of the smaller startups. Right. When you look at work from home, ain't nobody a startup in that world. That is, that is either Amazon branded products or that is the big boys. It's, the Logitechs and the Legrands that are playing in that space. What do you think the mix is going to be? Because typically anything that was quote unquote Innovation Alley-ish was always these small startup companies. Right. Is that going to push them kind of out a little bit?
Well, so I spoke to Jason McGraw at Emerald, who is the new CEDIA guy, and Samantha Ventura at CEDIA. And I think this is going to be a little different than what you would think of as Innovation Alley and Rookie Row back in the day. There is also a thing called Launchpad, which is where they're really going to be putting those newer companies, like the CEDIA Propel types of companies, the more startup or new to CEDIA. But the Innovation Hub, which is what this article is mainly talking about, that is more of these trends. And so I do think it's a blend of the smaller companies, like you said, and some of those more established, bigger consumer-facing companies. So the thing where we do the case studies, that's a little different setting than what we're calling Launchpad at the show. So I do think they're trying different things. Not to be cynical, but I do think some of this is truly programming that's really planned ahead, but a little bit of it may be space utilization on the floor, because they're not going to have as big of a show as they have in past years. There are reasons for that. International companies not able to travel yet. You know how that is. There's 250 exhibitors, so it's not going to be a small show, but it's not going to be your typical size. So you're going to have some open space that you need to use in a creative way. And I think these are great ways to allow people a chance to just sort of take a breather from one-on-ones at booths and absorb a little bit. Infocom's done a great job. Jason's from Infocom, Jason McGraw. Those stages that they have in the middle of Infocom.
Yeah, center stage.
Center stage. Our friend Kirsten Nelson was involved in those. I was at
Fantastic.
Infocom. Yeah, I was at Infocom for the first time, like in years, a couple years ago in Orlando, and I sat and watched those, and it was like outside of our focus at residential tech today. But I sat and watched the thing about cruise ship entertainment systems. That was just amazing. Like, I loved that. So that type of approach, I think, really could work well, especially if you're not there just with a packed schedule where you have to be at a booth every second of the day, like is the case for me usually, but that's okay. I'll make some time for these things as well.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that, and I'm glad you brought up center stage because it is somewhat akin to that. I'm really trusting that this does go down the true case study methodology.
Yeah.
Where, here was the problem, here's how we solved it, opposed to, and this isn't, a negative towards the companies and the brands, but typically you go to a booth and you're looking for a solution, and a company will just say, yes, here's our package, here's our solution for how we solve that. And, we're in the integration business. Quite often you need bits and pieces from multiple vendors to make a solution actually function. And, when I see the work from home and specifically the light commercial, no matter what any brand tells you, they do not have everything you need to finish any job. You need lots of things. And the case study side, especially if you're not working in those veins, should be really, really helpful to help you really get a grasp and a true understanding of, how those spaces work and how you can be profitable in them. All right, Jeremy, let's wrap this up with our last story today that actually comes from Residential Tech Today.
Yay.
Yay. And Jory Raymer. Am I saying that right? I think I'm saying that right.
Yeah. You got it.
Yes. I'm always happy when I get somebody's name right. Smart home owners are expecting more from their service providers. Take a look through the article. It's a really good one. It's talking specifically about how there is a large number and an ever-increasing number of smart devices and specifically things like smart dishwashers and refrigerators and appliances and other high-end items that are kind of outside the typical HTP landscape, but they're becoming incredibly commonplace in a quote-unquote smart home. And when something in that device breaks down, how do you get it fixed? How quickly can you get it fixed? And who can actually fix it? Which was something that I got to say I hadn't really given a lot of thought to. The best example they use is a smart dishwasher that can respond to commands given via Alexa or another home assistant, can send you a notification, all of those really cool things. When that dishwasher stops working, who's responsible to fix that and who can fix that? Jeremy, when you see this, when you follow this story, it was one of those things that it really kind of reminded me of quite a few installations that we've been around where a homeowner got a brand new furnace and they got a smart thermostat from the HVAC company, but it wasn't connected to anything other than the furnace. Mm-hmm. They got a brand new Genair beautiful kitchen set of appliances, all smart, all can send you a notification if the door's open. You can turn on the oven no matter where you are to preheat it. It was all installed. It's all working beautifully. None of the smart stuff was hooked up at all. The client looked to us and said, "Oh, by the way, can you hook this up?" And it's like, well, it's not our stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we hooking? Well, they don't do that. When it comes to the repair side, I imagine that's going to continually get worse. Is this one of those things where HTPs need to continually evolve to some degree, become the dishwasher repair person? Or is it one of those things where, especially if you find yourself doing a lot of service, you really need to align with a top-notch appliance repair company and kind of be that that go-to, hey, you fix the washing arm in the dishwasher, and we'll fix the network connection of the dishwasher.
Right. Yeah, so this was, when you described that scenario, it was very familiar to me, especially with the HVAC, because I got a new HVAC system a few years back, and it had a smart thermostat, attached to it. It was beautiful. Loved the thing. I had the opportunity to upgrade my home to a Control 4 home. Thank you to the folks that helped me get that done, including Millennium Sounds in Indianapolis. And they swapped out the thermostat for a Control 4 thermostat. And what, maybe the aesthetics weren't quite the same, but it all worked together with the entire system. They didn't do that. They brought in an HVAC professional to do that, even though it wasn't installing any of the hardware for the system. It was literally the controller. But they said there were too many ins and outs of this thing, too much that we don't deal with on a daily basis, that we don't want to mess with it. We've had mistakes happen. You don't want your house to suddenly not heat in the winter or cool in the summer. So let's get that liability off of us and put it on in the hands of someone who's a professional. You see that a lot with other specialties that are still within the smart home space, but maybe go a little bit further out. Obviously, electrical contracting is a big one, but I think that having that experience firsthand, watching this integration company say, we don't have every answer, we can't do all this stuff, even though it's a smart item. Kind of woke me up to the fact that that's really a good way to do it. You got to take the ego out of it. You can't be all things to all people. Maybe you do have to look at who can do the appliance repair as well. Be a good point company, service provider in general for your homeowner, because they know that they can call you. You don't always know who to call when it's something else in your home. That comfort level with an integrator really, to me, is where our industry is so much different than so many others. That if you can maintain that relationship and that trust factor and say, look, I'm not going to be the repair person, but I have quote unquote Rolodex of preferred vendors who are service providers who can do it. I think that's great, especially when you're dealing with those high priced appliances,
Well, and I think that's really the key, because I know just from our experience in my company, the company that I would call to fix a Maytag washing machine,
right,
is not the company that ever is going to be called to look at a Wolf range. Right. Like it is one of those things. The company that does the HVAC in my house is not the same as the company that does the 30 zones of radiant in-floor heating in one of our larger, really, cool customers' homes.
Right.
They're not they're in the same vein, but they're not the same. They're different. They're different companies. They have different specialties. Is this not, again, kind of that perfect opportunity to steal Rich Fregosa's line, for us to be that digital concierge, for our industry to be the trusted professional that the homeowner talks to and says, hey, we need an electrician to fix this. Who do we use?
Right.
Because when they come to you, that it really cements that relationship. I guess my question to you would be, if it's one of those things where 9 times out of 10 it's not the network that's causing the problem, but you are still kind of that middleman, how do you go about actually getting paid for that? Can you get paid for that, or is it goodwill?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I was going to say that another term that came to mind was the trusted advisor. There's a book by Robert Golford. I had to look it up, but it was one of these books that you constantly heard referred to at CEDIA management conferences and those kind of meetings. But I think a lot of it is goodwill, unfortunately. I don't know how much. Maybe you have a relationship with that company as a referral fee or something. That's a good opportunity between business people, as opposed to laying it on the client. So you look good in the client's eyes, but that other company that you work with, you say, hey, here, can we? If I refer you in these situations that may not come up that often, look out for me. Maybe there's a little bit of a a fee that goes your way? I don't know. That's a good question. I did want to mention that this article was written, like you said, by Jory Raymer, and he's CEO of a company called Super, which has this app that's called Hello Super. And so he has an agenda in this article. There's no sales pitch within it, but if you look between the lines, there's a reason why he wrote this, because that Hello Super is kind of like this third party service provider that they're trying to establish. And I don't know a lot about it yet. I need to do some more digging with them as far as how well they've established their network of service providers. But their motivation is to try to get out there and create this like one-stop place for people who have smart homes to go on and subscribe to their service. And if they do have like a network issue or something, or an appliance goes out, a smart appliance, that they have a contract with this company that has a repair professional that comes out or reboots something. So that's very much presented on the consumer mass market level. So not competing directly with a CEDIA level integrator, but I thought that was interesting and worth mentioning, just in full disclosure that that's what this article is kind of based around. Kind of interesting business plan. We'll see how well they get it established.
It does really pop just that good question, though, of, and we've gone down this rabbit hole as a company myself, where you go to fix a problem and it's 9 times out of 10 it's an ISP problem,
right?
But for whatever reason, the homeowner always wants to blame the device that you sold them, and you go down the 40 steps of troubleshooting to then get back to the ISP modem keeps rebooting, and that's why you keep losing your network. It's not because our WAPs are going down, it's because the ISP modem's rebooting. I think that is the big challenge these days, is that with so many things being connected, it's not that you show up with a 10 mil socket and just fix the washing machine. It's going to be a much bigger problem.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the points this guy makes in his article, and it's just there are a lot of headaches that you can't even predict at this point, that could be software or hardware, and it's not necessarily mechanical. So it's a challenging time to not only be a service provider but a homeowner, clearly, with these products.
Definitely. All right, Jeremy, let's wrap it there. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If people want to connect with you, learn more about residential tech today, where can they do that?
Go to the website, restechtoday.com, and subscribe to the magazine. It comes out every other month in digital or print. And subscribe to the newsletter, which is twice a week. And look for our podcast that we actually interview professionals in the integration business and smart home space. It's called Residential Tech Talk. So look for it on Apple Podcasts.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Again, to Alex from Josh AI, please feel better. We're thinking about you, my friend. If you are, as I mentioned earlier, if you are going to CEDIA and you want a free access code for the show floor, just go to the CEDIA Expo website and type in AVNation, and that will get you onto the show floor. Thanks again for joining us. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Twitter at Matt D. Scott and pretty much every other social platform. But more importantly, please visit avnation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek.